Rebel salute, rebel salute. Hope you guys doing well wherever you are. This is Kenya Revolutionary. Oh, if you haven't subscribed to my channel, please go ahead and subscribe. We are live right now on X. If you're following in X, again, my name is Kenya Revolutionary or K Revolutionary in X. You can follow me so you can get a live stream of my rantings and ravings about Kenya politics, or should I say Kenyan politics. But anyway, again, follow me on YouTube. Just type the name as it is on the screen right there, Kenya Revolutionary, and you can find me there and subscribe, share, like, and you can always comment. Now, I was thinking of something today, and it's this. It brings me to this topic: Okiya Omtata versus Raila Odinga, and I want to put the link so anybody who wants to come and join and comment and just show his face and discuss this with me, you can free to do that. So let me go ahead and do that. Put the link on the screen. Click the link on the screen. Before I get started, click the link below. Okay, so we can have this discussion because I think it is important with the advent of what's going on right now, especially after the pronouncements by the Azimio flag bearer today, Mr. Raila Odinga. I think it is good for Kenyans to ask themselves if Azimio are actually after fighting for Kenyans, or should we look elsewhere? So far, and I hate to say this because, if there was to be a revolution, if there's to be a revolutionary movement, if you want change, because obviously we can all agree as Kenyans that the trajectory in which this country is moving towards, as far as economic growth, is heading at a place where it's unsustainable. We cannot continue like this. But what are the alternatives? Again, the point I'm trying to make is that it's unfortunate that Kenyans, when we face crisis, we don't kind of have our own people-led, people and organic people movement. We always seems to look for a savior, a messiah, a leader to lead our movement. And at the end of the day, we always end up being shortchanged. I mean, you can just ask Azimio followers right now, do you really think that Raila Odinga will lead you to Canaan, as he said? He's already agreeing to what this report by NADCO was put forth. And I know you might argue with me that he wasn't specific. Yes, he was very specific. He is for it. Again, he used very careful language, but obviously it was very, very, very clear that he wants this referendum for this these recommendations to be realized, to be passed through parliament, and he wants the constitution to be changed for this position to be created. Okay, that's why he went on a tangent, or just he tried to justify everything by explaining himself how he will try to engage the Kenyan people in every step as they still keep on having these talks and hopefully have an agreement with Kenya Kwanza people in regard to the cost of living, which is something that they both could not agree on. But anyway, let me post the link before I get into the nitty-gritty of what I want to talk about today. And I will also play this Raila Odinga speech because I think it is interesting. I want to open your eyes for those who doubt that he will actually agree to this. He actually agreed to this, okay? He just used a lot of fluff in his speech to seem that he was sitting on the fence, as if he was cautiously optimistic about this thing, but he actually agreed to it, especially that part when he said that this thing should be taken to the people for approval in order to have this so that it can stop anyone who might have an idea of going to the courts. I mean, that gave it away, okay? But anyway, let me post the link below. There's, hold on, for the link. It's on the chat right now. Let me see. Oh, wait a minute. Wait a minute. Give me a minute, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters. I will post it just right now for the link in order to join the conversation. If you want to join, let me post it right there. Right there. There's the link for anyone who wants to join. This is a free forum. You can get in, challenge me. That's the link. If you're on X and you want to be part of this, I know I'm live at X. Go ahead, feel free, get in. This again, we are very free. We don't. This is not like other channels where they kind of sort of want to have people with the same view and promote certain agenda. Here is our agenda is the truth. So if you come here with your information and we can actually debate, we can have a discussion, we can agree to disagree. But at the end of the day, we just want people to actually, speak their minds, speak what you think. Okay. Now the topic today is Okiya Omtata versus Raila Odinga. I kind of, if you compare the two, okay, juxtapose Okiya Omtata with Raila Odinga and see their achievement. I know Raila Odinga fans will kill me for even trying to put these two on the same category because they feel like Raila Odinga has been there for a while. He's been fighting for Kenya since, I don't know, 1845 or whatever. But at this moment of time, if you were to compare the two, it is high time we look at Okiya Omtata seriously, because just think about it, okay? With what's going on right now, again, we all agree that Ruto is letting us down. It's been a year and the country is on sale. IMF is calling the shots. Our sovereignty is already gone. How can we rally around and get our sovereign power back? How can we do that? Legally, okay? Now, of late, let's just go back to 2022, okay? We went to the elections and Raila lost. Some of you might argue that he was, kura yake iliibiwa. Legally, I can't see anything that suggests otherwise, okay? I think he lost fair and square. Now, he waited 5 months to start his mandamano because if you've noticed, okay, Raila Odinga has always been fighting Ruto and is trying to fight him outside of the law. He does not want to use the constitutional means to take out Ruto, okay? I asked Azimio fellas, I told them, listen, if you want to take Ruto out, why can't you use the members of parliament that you have, okay, the legislative body, to have a vote of confidence to impeach William Ruto? I mean, all you have to do, look at Article 145 of the Constitution, all right? Now, you can argue that the parliament is being sold out, bought out, or whatever the case is, all right? You want to argue that. Just listen to the opposition, even the UDA guys, people like Dismas Baraza, okay, and others. They're also complaining of the high price of living. Why don't you use those guys and form a coalition with them? Not a coalition, but I mean, like, why can't you guys come together and come up with a, tell Ruto, listen, if you don't bring the cost of living down, we are impeaching you. Hold him responsible. The legislative body should be maintaining checks and balance on the executive, okay? That's the role of the legislative body. Not only should it legislate laws, but also check the executive if they're going wrong. You can't just sit there and say, the president, the executive have bought all the members of parliament. You can't argue like that. I see these people complaining that, these people are bought and they're complaining about this. That was part of the issue in the talks agenda, that people should respect the political parties or whatever. And again, the Constitution, the law provides for all this, even the Political Parties Act, okay, among other things. Every party there's a hierarchy, a chain of command of what needs to be done in a case of, let's say, Jalas and not Ogienda, those so-called rogue ODM members who went and met the president, okay? In fact, the judge just, ruled today that kicking out of those members was null and void, that it was illegal. You can't do that, okay? It wasn't legal. I think Nelson Harvey just posted that today in his tweet. And again, like I said, if there is a case of any member of a political party who wants to work with the president, okay, you can look at the severity of the so-called violation. And given the laws that we have in the current constitution, okay, and even the laws regarding the Political Parties Act, if a member works with the president, okay, or does something that you feel that is a violation of the party policy, okay, party rules, the constitution of the party, there are ways in which you can take care of that, okay? You can't just sit there and start saying the president is buying our members of parliament or our politicians and there's nothing we can do. So let's have a talk and let's see how we can change the constitution so that we can keep these people online. I mean, what kind of reasoning is this, okay? But not to get off the point. As I was saying, Raila Odinga and Azimio, they want to operate outside of the law, okay? They had the first talks. Remember, this talk was not the first talks. The first meeting was the one with the George, I forgot his name. His first name was George and Mr. Otiende, okay? They had that talks, but it failed because the Kenya Kwanza side maintained they were intransigent in their position. They were saying, hey, anything that you guys want to discuss with us should be through the parliament, okay? They were very rigid in their position. They were not having it. And Otiende Amolo realized that, and the talks collapsed. So they had to choose a new team. So they found the Chungwa and people who are more susceptible to ODM's Azimio's demands. So they sat down and came up with all this stuff. Now, remember, I want you to jog your memory back to that funeral of the lady, the Mau Mau's, the Mau Mau lady. What was her name? She was the wife of Dedan Kimathi. And when Ruto was speaking in that funeral, he mentioned something. He said, I know what this mzee wants. Basically, he was insinuating that, not even insinuating, he said it explicitly, said that Raila Odinga's problem is that he wants Nusumkati, he wants a cheo, like I said, he wants Kiti, he wants the trappings of power, an office, bodyguards, red carpet, and a salary, okay? That's why you see him, he's so active up there every day saying something. Every day he's up there talking politics. You see his counterpart, his friend, who still claims to be Azimio, even though Jubilee has officially left Azimio, Mr. President Kenyatta, Uhuru Kenyatta. He's not out there in this mandamano. He's not on these talks. He's not visible as he used to, okay? He's in the background because he understands, he's not, he's not into power, okay? He finishes 10 years, he's out. If there's something that he wants to do, he'll do it on the behind the curtain, okay? But Raila wants to feel like the president. He's out there, okay? He's always coming with the dossier. There's always something he wants to go to. Whenever there's a tragedy, he's the first one there. But what I'm trying to get at is this. Raila and Azimio folks, why can't they use the powers that they've been donated to by the Wananchi, their supporters, okay, that has been donated to them to remove Ruto, okay? Why can't they work towards that instead of actually making these demands, going to Mandamano, causing chaos? I mean, do we need to have chaos? Do we have to have the police kill your supporters in order for you to have what? An office of the opposition, whatever. So we can have, I don't know, CDF money being sent to MCAs or whatever the case is, okay? Whatever the nonsense that has been proposed in this NADCO nonsense, okay? That's what I mean, okay? Why can't they use the system that exists already to hold Ruto responsible, okay? The Finance Act, that should have not passed. The whole country was against this Finance Act, okay? Okay, when it was brought to the parliament, most of the 89 MPs, I keep on saying this, 89 MPs absconded, did not show up in parliament to vote for that bill. So Ruto and his folks voted for that bill and it passed. Then after that, after the fact, these Azimio MPs came back and started lamenting, complaining about this bill, that they didn't want it. I don't know what. Well, if you didn't want it, you should have shown your face, stand and be counted as one of these people who refuse to pass this draconian bill that's now affecting Kenyans. Don't abscond from it, from the process, from your duty, okay? Do not do that. Show up when we need you the most. When Kenyans needed you to go there and vote no in this bill, you decided not to show up. But then after it has been voted and it has become law, you come around and start complaining for that very bill that you had the power to stop. This is what I'm talking about, okay? That's why I say these Azimio folks are not an option. They're not a solution. Now, there's a one man in the name of Okiya Omtata. I don't know if he's the MP of Busia or somewhere. You know who he is. Just Google it. Okiya Omtata. You know, he's a one-man army. Okay? Yes, he gets his information. He works together with Jimmy Wanjigi to get the information about how much Kenyans owe and all that stuff. Actually, the things that we Kenyans, that affect us directly, okay? Because the debt that we have as Kenyans is affecting us. 70% of our revenue goes to debt payment. Okay? The taxes that are being raised on us, we are being told it is done so because of the debt that we have. Okay? The subsidies that were taken off, the government is not providing subsidies, we are being told because we are paying debt. So we can't have that. Okay? Everything ties to that. And these are the issues that we should be looking at. But not even one Azimio MP. I'm using Azimio. I'm not picking on Azimio because I hate Azimio or anything, or because Kenya Kwanza are better. Okay, Kenya Kwanza are a basket case. You saw them. They make the administration serikali. We already know these guys are incompetent. They can't do anything. But there's something that can be done. Where is the opposition? Because if Kenya Kwanza is in power, then Azimio is the opposition. But we're looking at the opposition, and the opposition are only concerned with what? Creating positions, changing the constitution so they can have power for their big folks. Okay? For Raila to have maybe a position of whatever, or prime minister or something. Okay? While the Kenyan population are looking at Azimio as, where? How are you fighting Ruto? How are you keeping it told? What are you guys doing? Every day you have press conferences coming out with a new dossier about you oil upper, while you guys can legislate. Instead of rallying your troops to go to the streets wearing sufurias, claiming you have 20 million signatures to take out Ruto, why can't your law-making guys, the MPs, the legislatures, okay, work in parliament with also disgruntled Kenya Kwanza people? Because on the ground, whether you are UDA or Azimio, on the ground, the people are complaining. And you can have something in common and come up with a law that actually helps everyone's constituency, whether it's UDA or Kenya Kwanza. You just saw how Murkomen was being heckled. He couldn't even finish his speech in Baringo. Okay, that's a Kenya Kwanza stronghold. Where is Azimio? Azimio, reach out to the Baringo MP. Reach out to the Baringo senator. Draft a bill. Say, hey, listen, we are all suffering. All our constituents are suffering. The cost of living is high in Baringo, high in Nairobi, high in Kisumu, high in Mount Kenya, high everywhere, in cost everywhere. Why can't we come up with a bill to actually clip the power of the executive, to bring it down? But no, what are you guys doing? You're still reading us the NADCO report, which Raila today says that, he will go ahead with it. And he will make sure it goes to a referendum, because according to him, he says, if it goes through a referendum, there'll be nobody can actually go to the court, because going through a referendum will be the lawful way to go, which he fails to understand that it can still be challenged in court, because this is not a people-initiated proposal. This is a proposal that was brought about by people who are working extra parliamentary. They were outside of the legislative body. They were discussing it privately. This is an issue that Azimio and Kenya Kwanza were discussing outside of the legislative body. That's where the talk started. And now they want to bring it to parliament to be voted on. So it's not a it is not a people-initiated thing. It is the Azimio leader and Kenya Kwanza leader coming up with this idea of having a referendum. And that's not a people's initiative. The Kenyan people are not concerned with whatever you came up with at the Bomas. Okay? If there was something to be discussed, it should have been initiated at the legislative body with the people having public participation, debate the issue, then vote on the issue. Okay? And if then we agree that we should go to a referendum, so be it. But you cannot initiate this proposal outside the parliament, outside the legislative body, where 5 or 10 or 3 or 5, 6, 7, 10, 9, 11 people decide what's good for the country without public participation. It has to come from the people. And so far, majority of Kenyans do not want to change the constitution. They want it implemented and respected. Okay? And not only that, their priority as it is right now is the cost of living. Okay? Cost of living. How are we going to deal with that? Okay? And this ties in with everything, whether it's government spending, whether it's the corruption, whether it's the debt, or lack of respect for the rule of law. These are 4 things that are interrelated, that are affecting the cost of living. And of course, our sovereignty is in danger. Okay? They want to sell KICC. They want to sell our seeds. Okay? Where's our sovereignty? Okay? And all these companies, 28 companies already, who are enjoying life, living tax-free life in these economic free zones, not paying any tax. Okay? This is what I'm talking about. But the issues that we should be grappling with as Kenyans, as lawmakers, as the members of opposition, we are not doing so. Okay? Raila Odinga, just let us look at these past 2 weeks. He came up with a dossier. Today he's talking about everything that's wrong with this Ruto government, which is okay. I'm not knocking him for that. He can come up every day and remind us of the wrongs that President Ruto is doing since he's the face of the opposition. That's fine. But talking about it is not enough. You, as the head of the Azimio coalition, why don't you use your members of parliament, okay, make inroads, across the aisle, reach out across the aisle to other MPs, okay, and do something about this. Reach out to those UDA MPs. Cheragay already is having his spat with Murkomen. Those are the people that you can reach out to and be like, hey, listen, we agree. We are glad you mentioned about the 15 million that, or billion, or whatever the case is, that Murkomen mentioned, that Murkomen took from China, allegedly, okay? Why don't you work with Cheragay and say, hey, listen, are you serious about this? Bring him to the whatever, let him testify under oath, okay? Where if he lies, that will be perjury, and you'll take him off office. Impeach him if you do, remove him if you have to, okay? Let him testify. Hold them accountable. If they took bribe, deal with him. Those are the people you have to reach out to. Democracy is about persuasion. You persuade, okay? Persuasion. Persuade, okay? Win the hearts of the people, not only in the parliament, but even outside the parliament, by advancing their interests, the interest of the people. This is not a Gor Mahia versus AFC Leopards game where it's all about who won and who lost. The people who should be winning are the people of Kenya. That's why I'm saying Raila Odinga is going about it the wrong way, and his house is about to get divided. We already saw Martha Karua don't want to be part of that stuff. He already spoke against that whole NADCO recommendations. And Eugene Wamalwa did the same thing. Who else did the same thing? There were a bunch of Azimio folks who are not happy with this report, okay? Okay? Now, take Okiya Omtata. I think Okiya Omtata is growing in stature, okay? Because of his action. He might be a one-man army, okay? But he fights Ruto using the instruments that he has in the constitution, okay? When the finance bill was being passed, he went and challenged it, citing where it was violating the constitution, okay? The housing levy, where we just had a victory, it was Okiya, okay, who brought it up there. You see, at every step, Okiya always challenges. He uses the instruments that are provided to us in the constitution to fight, to keep the government in check. One man, one man. He's not interested in having talks outside the parliament to see if he can have a position in the government. He's not trying to change the constitution so he can be the next attorney general. Okay? If Okiya was self-serving, he would have told Ruto, hey, listen, let's change this constitution so we can have 2 attorney generals. Make me the second attorney general. Okay? That's what Azimio is essentially doing. Instead of doing their job at the legislative body and the power that has been donated to them by the people, exercises to advance the interest of the people. So that's why I'm saying Raila Odinga is not advancing the people's interests. That's why I compare him with Okiya. We are at a pivotal moment where we need to ask ourselves, because whether we like it or not, Kenya Kwanza or Azimio, we will have to drop down our guns, lay down our guns, and say, hey, how are we going to salvage what's left of what we call Kenya, the Republic? Because it is obvious that Raila Odinga and Ruto are not the answer. It's time to stop playing politics. It's time to stop this ukabila. We need to stop that. That time is over now. Because these guys, they want to change the constitution. The constitution is sacred in any republic. The constitution is something sacred. You never go tell any Christian that, hey, listen, let's change this Bible and let's add some things there that will make us be our own gods. See if that will go down well with true Christians. The same thing. The Kenyan constitution is sacred. We should be implementing fully, apply it at every juncture. Okay? We cannot change the constitution just because somebody lost an election and they feel butthurt about losing. We don't have to accommodate you, and I'm not talking about Raila himself or the opposition, just because you want to be part of government. And no, it is not about inclusivity. It is about the Kenyan people. We don't have to include everybody from every part of government, whether it's a female or a woman rep or whatever, man, whatever, just in the name of inclusivity. No, we don't have to include everybody. We have to have a mean, lean, fiscally fit government that is efficient, and bills like this privatization bill that we pass to give powers to private corporations taking over the functions and facets of our economy, this should be illegal and shouldn't pass. This idea of having economic free zones should not be allowed. These corporations make billions and trillions in Kenya. These are the guys that we should be taxing heavily. Okay? So again, if we are to compare Raila Odinga and Okiya for the past 20 years, in my opinion, Okiya has done more than Raila Odinga. He has been people-centered. And it is time for us to rally behind someone like that. This report showed you, actually exposed Azimio for those who still had hope in Raila Odinga. It exposes him. It shows that his priority is not bringing down the cost of living. As I've said, listen to his speech, and I'll play it in a minute. I'm about to go through that speech so we can both listen to what he said, and I will break it down and show you that he actually does not prioritize the cost of living as an issue. Because remember, this report was signed on by Kalonzo and Kimani Ichung'wah, and they were both given the blessings of Raila Odinga and who? William Ruto, in order to finalize this. Okay? So Raila knew about this report. He just is very careful with his supporters. So let's go to his speech. Okay? Let's go to his speech. I will play, it's been 30 minutes. I'll go for another 30 or less. I'll go to his speech so we can break down the speech, and I will leave it at that. Ladies and gentlemen, if you want to be part of this, you can free to hit the link, come in, discuss. But I want us to go to the link. Let's go to Raila's speech. Okay. All right. Thank you. Let's go ahead and listen in to Raila Odinga.
And restraint as the dialogue continued. I thank the members from both sides of the talks for their commitment and dedication to national duty. After the initial tension and mistrust, which was expected, the parties gelled and worked well together. Trust returned in their ranks, and they were then able to show a strong commitment to peace and reconciliation and the strengthening of institutions and governance process in Kenya. The document the team has come up with is ultimately imperfect and unfinished, but it is a good beginning. We have agreed to disagree.
So here he says that the document that has come is perfect, but it's unfinished. Note that he said it is perfect, but unfinished. Let's go on.
On the most important matter to us, we made what we believed were reasonable proposals on how to address the rising cost of living. But the government side flatly refused, terming it their exclusive business and further arguing that they got the mandate of Kenyans to execute their Kenya Kwanza economic agenda. We will be engaging Kenyans further in the coming weeks as we must, because the pain of the cost of living is really unbearable. In the coming weeks, the majority of Kenyans will be carrying the burden of increased school fees besides the many crises in the education sector. Be that as it may, we have come this far because of a commitment to constructive engagement and positive energy and sacrifice for the sake of our beloved country, Kenya. Our team was able to get positive results on a number of the issues that we had set out in our demands. These include electoral justice, which encapsulates audit of the 2022 election process, restructuring and the constitution of the IEBC, increase of the timelines for the Supreme Court to hear and determine a presidential election petition from 14 to 21 days, and a commitment to the spirit of multi-party democracy. We were also able to agree on the transfer of all devolved functions and the requisite resources to the county governments, in addition to amending the constitution to provide for the equitable share of the county governments to not less than 20% of all revenue collected by the national government from the current 15%, and the establishment of the World Development Fund.
Hey guys, what's going on? I'm R.A. Smith, otherwise known on the internet as Shauma NYC.
We believe that these are significant reform mileages that, if implemented, can help strengthen our governance and electoral processes and safeguard the march of democracy in Kenya. Azimio, however, remains deeply disappointed that the
Again, this whole idea of sorry, I'm having trouble there. Let me yes, like as I was saying, this whole idea of having restructuring the IEBC, we should ask ourselves, how does restructuring IEBC help the cost of living go down? Number two, how does auditing the elections, 2022 elections, help the cost of living go down? Again, how does changing the timeline in which you can put a petition from 14 days to 21 days, how does that help the cost of living to go down? Again, sending money, the CDF money to the whatever MCAs or whatever the case is, how does that help the cost of living go down? Okay, because if I can remember, these guys went to had those mandamano. The reason was electoral justice. Okay, the matter was took the matter to the court and they lost. Okay, so then they switched up and told us that their main aim is cost of living, and they actually say that they will not agree on any reports. They will not put a signature to it unless the cost of living is agreed upon. But today, Raila Odinga, as you've heard him say, that out of all the issues, that was one issue that they did not agree upon. He said that the Kenya Kwanza were intransigent when it came to that. They did not want to give up, or they did not come to a conclusion on how to bring the cost of living down. But he told us not to worry, because they will continue working with this and consulting the Kenyan people. But it's okay, let's go ahead and try to implement this report as it is. So they've shifted from saying that they will not agree to signing this report unless the cost of living is brought down and is agreed upon, and they agree upon how to bring it down, to now they're saying that that's something they did not agree upon, but they still agree with the report as it is right now. Nothing that he has mentioned will help bring the cost of living down, because remember, that's the main issue that made them to go to Mandamano and have those protests. But let's continue.
Committee was not able to agree on the one fundamental issue on which Kenyans are united across the political divide. The two teams were unable to agree on the need and the means to reduce the cost of living. This is why we have described the document the committee presented as imperfect and unfinished. It was not for lack of trying on our part that the committee was unable to agree on the issue of cost of living. Kenyans will recall that at the beginning of the talks, the Kenya Kwanza administration was adamant that cost of living would never be taken to the discussion table, let alone being discussed. The Kenya Kwanza had insisted that the only issues it was ready to discuss were the reconstitution of the IBC, implementation of the 2/3 gender rule, entrenchment of Constituency Development Fund, establishment and entrenchment of the office of the leader of the opposition, and the embedment of the office of Prime Cabinet Secretary. Through persistence and insistence, we forced cost of living onto the table. We had hoped that as the talks progressed, when life got harder for Kenyans, Kenya Kwanza leaders could have the empathy, soften their hearts, and agree.
So if you listen carefully here, he is very, very, he's careful in mentioning that all these positions that you see a lot of, especially as the Mio side, were complaining about this, official opposition, whatever, chair and cabinet secretary or whatever. Easy Cheozote, this was coming from the Kenya Kwanza side. He's very careful in saying that, as I say, because he understands that his supporters, Azimio diehards, are not happy about this idea because it will paint him as someone who actually, after all, wanted this Yokiti. He never cared about the cost of living. So he's very clear in mentioning that this was coming from the Kenya Kwanza side, not from the Azimio side. And that's why he re-emphasizes again that he fought tooth and nail. Azimio fought tooth and nail to make the cost of living issue be number one in the agenda. That's what he's simply trying to say. But again, let's go ahead and listen to him.
To lessen the burden their policies had imposed on Kenyans. Our delegation pushed for the complete overhaul of the Finance Act 2023, which had come with harsh taxation measures and made and continue to make life.
He's highlighting about the Finance Act. And again, I repeat, Raila Odinga, before the Finance Act was voted on, or the day of the voting, 89 MPs absconded, never showed up to the parliament to participate in the vote, okay? So that left the majority being Kenya Kwanza members of parliament who voted for this bill, which passed and became law. And after it became law, the very MPs, majority of them being Azimio MPs, came back and started complaining about this very bill, which became law, while when they had the opportunity to carry out their duty as members of the legislative body who are tasked with the work of legislating, voting on this issue, they never did so. Okay, when push came to shove, they never showed up and they never voted for it. Then after it was passed, now they want to complain about it. And again, Raila Odinga, did those MPs, party members, were they disciplined for not showing up during the vote? Because at least if the MPs were there present, if they were there and they voted no, maybe we could have had a chance, a good chance of not having that bill passed. But majority of your MPs never showed up in parliament on that day. So you can't sit here and start complaining that about the Finance Act while your MPs, Raila Odinga, you being the head of the Azimio, and were they reprimanded for not showing up? No, they did not. But here you are telling us about the bad things about this bill. But go ahead.
Life unbearable to an overwhelming majority of Kenyans. At no expense to the government, we deployed our team of economists to recommend to the administration measures which, if adopted, would immediately bring the cost of living down. We asked the government to reduce travel budgets by 50%, We also called on the government to reduce the daily subsistence allowances for state and public officers by 30%. We further asked the government to reduce the road maintenance levy and the anti-adulteration levy by 5 shillings and 3 shillings per litre, respectively. Our team further asked the government to reduce VAT on fuel from 16% to 8%. We called on the government to scrap the housing levy or at least make it voluntary. Unfortunately, Kenya Kwanza would not budge. Apparently, the regime's economic...
So here he tells us about the government having to convince, they were proposing to the other side, the Kenya Kwanza side, who are heading the administrative body of government, to cut down their spending by 50%, and cut down on the levies, the housing levies, and all that stuff. But here's my question, though. Does it mean that if the executive cut down their spending, does that automatically mean that the cost of living shall go down? He's asking for the VATs to go down from 16 to 8. Raila knows this more than anybody. He was the prime minister. Well, he was the prime minister. He actually advocated for the GMOs to come in Kenya. Okay, there's a speech of him giving mentioning this in the parliament when he was the prime minister, and he was advocating for GMOs, and he understands that the levy, sorry, not the housing levy, but there's some people like some things like VAT on fuel. This is part of the conditions that you have to do when you take money from the IMF, okay? But again, he understands that his supporters don't understand this. I'm not saying this to defend Ruto. Of course, I would like to have a low VAT on fuel. But as a prime minister, he understands that the IMF actually told the government, this government, Kenyan government, that they should have no subsidies. If they want to receive more money from the loans, and they promised to give Kenyan government 1.8 trillion loans in the next, 5 years. In order to do so, they should do away with subsidies, okay? So bringing the VAT down from 16 to 8 is nearly impossible. Raila knows this. But again, he's a politician. He's pandering to his supporters. He's basically, what he's trying to do here in this speech is trying to show his supporters that, look, I agreed upon this, I agreed on this recommendation, this report, but I want to make it clear that these things, like the bad things that you guys are not happy about, I was not for it. This came from the other side, but I was willing to compromise, okay? He wants to wash his hands, so when this thing fails, he can say, listen, after all, I just compromised with them, but I never really wanted all this official opposition position and all this stuff, all this VAT, whatever. I never agreed upon that, okay? I only agreed on the cost of living, which they never came to an agreement on that. But okay, let's keep on listening.
Economic policies hardened life for Kenyans. So did the regime harden its heart. We realized that without the goodwill of the top echelons of the Kenya Kwanza leadership, cost of living was never going to be addressed. They told our team that the cost of living was a government issue, that they have a manifesto and the mandate of the people of Kenya to implement it.
Yes, I hate to agree that Kenya Kwanza are right when they say that the cost of living is an issue that can be addressed by the current administration. That's not an issue that they should discuss. There's nothing to discuss there. Again, if there's any way of trying to bring something that's an alternative to the economic policies of William Ruto, they can bring their proposal at the parliament, legislative body, okay, as an alternative to what Ruto is doing if they feel that his economic policies are failing, okay? So the government is right to tell you that, hey, listen, there's nothing to talk about here. We won the elections. The Kenyan people trusted us to implement our economic policies, okay? So if you disagree with that, you do not form a committee to meet at Bomas Center to come up with a raft of proposal in order to help the economy, but you do address these things at the legislative body with the consultation of the people through their representative who were donated power to by the people. Okay, let's go on.
This is the hustlers, the Juakali, the Mamamboga, and the border border. Our team realized the whole issue of cost of living is extremely sensitive in the Kenya Kwanza circles because it is a gravy train on which many corrupt interests have converged. Cost of living cannot come down because the key people in the government are eating from it. That is why cabinet secretaries and other Kenya Kwanza shareholders recently fought over oil in the high seas. We got to understand that the housing levy, which even the courts have now found to be unconstitutional, cannot be scrapped because it is a gravy train. It is from this levy that the Kenya Kwanza hopes to build a campaign war chest for the next election. They forget that they may not get there. We realize that Kenya Kwanza cannot touch cost of living because it anchors the massive corruption that has returned to the country. We made it clear that we completely disagree with the government on the matter of cost of living. We made it clear that we will support the document ensuing from the talks, but we will treat the hard line on the cost of living at the beginning of another phase of this struggle. We will seek other ways to press the government to listen to the cries of the people and bring down the cost of living.
So he says he will seek other ways to force the government to bring down the cost of living. Why can't he make it public here now to tell the Kenyan people what he'll do differently to help bring down the cost of living? Okay, this shouldn't be a secret. You are doing this, you should be doing this at least, in helping the people of Kenya, not helping the Azimio win an election. So why should it be a secret? But go ahead. I'll forward this a little bit because it's a little bit too long. There's a lot of fluff in his speech. So I'll just highlight the really part that I really wanted to emphasize on, which I thought was really interesting. But let's listen along.
Other ways will include, it will not be limited to, consultations with the people. At all times, we will retain the right to call on the people to take steps that we deem necessary to force the government to lower the cost of living. We also support the document with the proviso that certain aspects must be approved by the people by way of a referendum. To create the office of the leader of opposition or to formalize the office of the Prime Cabinet Secretary, the people of Kenya have to have their say by way of a referendum. Besides, it is a constitutional requirement that such significant restructuring of government must go through a referendum to avoid the mischief that may be played by some people going to court.
Right there, he's saying, he correctly mentions that in order to have a restructuring of the government, basically, in order to change the constitution or to amend the constitution, the matter should be taken to the people for a referendum, a plebiscite. Okay, he's correct. But when he adds, besides, this should be done to deter or stop the mischief of some people from going to the courts. And that's where he gave out his hand, because while he's right, in order to create these positions, you have to go through the people and have a referendum. But when he says that this is to stop people from going to the court, that's where he truly shows his intention that he wants this to go through, and he wants to make sure that he wants to avoid anybody from really stopping the process by going to the courts. But as I mentioned before I started, I say that it will go to court anyhow, because this is not a people-initiated proposal. This is a bunch of people who sat at Bomas Center and came up with a raft of ideas that they want to implement and change the constitution for their own selfish needs. This is not coming from the people. The people cared about the cost of living, which happens to be the one issue that these two could not agree upon. But they are ready to change the constitution in order to have these nonsensical positions, in order for them to occupy those positions, okay? They will agree on that, but they can't agree on the cost of living. They're telling us they'll use other means that will force the government to do that. And remember, their main reason for going to Mandamano was because of the cost of living, and also, because of electoral justice, all right? They agree upon everything, but none of this, okay? So here's where I say he lost whatever. I know he was trying to really distance himself from this position, but when he mentioned the fact that he will try to make it go through the right process, okay, take it to a referendum and make sure that people do not, the mischief of going to courts, that's where he gave out his hand, okay? Anyway, I'll stop here and I'll mention this just to summarize, because after this he just, he was fluffing around and never really said much after that. But what I wanted to finish with this, okay? The whole speech was geared towards the Azimio folks. This was not only Kenyans, it was more of Azimio followers. He was trying to break down and justify why he wants this thing passed. He mentioned all the things that the Kenya Kwanza proposed, okay? And he mentioned the things that Azimio proposed. Now, he tried to convince us that the Azimio only cared about the cost of living, which unfortunately they could not agree upon, okay? But again, he compromised by agreeing to all those positions of opposition and all those whatever, okay? So it is basically telling his supporter, hey, listen, we tried to bring down the cost of living, but we couldn't agree, but we won't stop. We'll continue, okay? But this thing, we shall pass it. And by the way, this thing will have to go to referendum, so people will have to vote on it. So don't worry about it. And we are bringing it to our referendum. That way, we stop anyone from actually going to court to stop this train, okay? So that's what he's trying to say. He's actually embracing this report by not explicitly saying, I like this thing, I embrace it. He wants to create, differentiate where he stood when, regardless of how him accepting the whole report. He's accepting the whole report, but he wants to be specific by saying that this is what I wanted, but unfortunately we couldn't agree on this, but I'll still embrace the whole thing, okay? So that's how my take on this. And it's unfortunate because now we'll have to spend a lot of time and a lot of wrangles through the through the legislative body, but hopefully an Okiya Omtata shall go to the courts and stop this, because this thing is illegal. It's not going anywhere. You cannot have a few people decide what's good for the whole country. We have to be consulted. We, the people, have to be consulted This thing should be debated in local barazas, taken to parliament, discussed and thoroughly debated on. Then let's vote on it if that's what they wanted. It should not be discussed by a few people at Bomas who are having billions, millions of shillings every day, and then forced on our throats for us to receive. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, brothers, sisters, friends, enemies, and comrades, this is Kenya Revolution. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, go ahead and subscribe, share, like, tell me what you think, comment, and I will talk to you guys later. Peace and blessings, and I'm out.